Hey everyone, this is Coloring Chemist. My name is Connie, and welcome back to my channel. And passing through as I'm beginning recording today is Mr. Coloring Chemist. Would you like to say hello, Mr. Coloring Chemist?
Hello everyone, Mr. Coloring Chemist here. Nice to see everybody. What are we doing today?
We are looking at acrylic paint markers.
Acrylic paint markers.
Yes.
I see. Are we just looking at them or are we going to be using them as well?
Probably a little bit of both.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of them?
I have, yes, a lot.
How did I know that?
You can go away now, Mr. Coloring Chemist.
Okay. Cookies to eat, movies to watch. Have
All
fun.
right, goodbye.
Bye. Love you.
Thanks. Love you too. My apologies for that. He was passing through. I'm recording. It's actually a Saturday night, and he's going to watch some movies and eat some cookies, and I'm going to be doing some filming. This video is inspired by, well, a couple different things. Number one, because I found a product that I think is interesting. And number two, I saw a video by another YouTuber, an artist on YouTube, SketchesnScrubs. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that YouTube channel. And number three, I had a very strange email conversation with a company. So all of those things came together, and I'm making this video. So, as I mentioned to Mr. Coloring Chemist, we are going to talk about acrylic paint markers. Now, this is some old sets that I have, and before I get into, during the course of this video, you're going to think to yourself, Connie, you have a ridiculous amount of acrylic paint pens and paint markers. I know I do. Considering I don't actually use them as much as I should for the amount that I have, but I just... So yes, I'm perfectly aware I have a ridiculous amount. But let's sort of start from what I can tell is kind of, the beginning of acrylic paint markers. And I'm just going to grab... Here is what I understand was sort of the beginning of acrylic paint markers, Posca. Now, I could be wrong on that. I didn't, do a deep dive, research into this, because it's not that vitally important. But basically, and Posca has, a number of different nib sizes, a number of different colors. This happens to be a black one. It's got that, really call this the 1M plastic nib. It's a way to use acrylic paint, which is a plastic-based paint. I mean, maybe a lot of people don't realize that. That's what acrylic is. It's plastic. So it's a plastic-based paint, but in a pen, as opposed to acrylic paint that occurs. I mean, you can get what's called soft body acrylic paint, which is the craft acrylic paint in the little squeeze bottles, like folk art, those kinds of paints. You can get what's called heavy body acrylic paint, which is more what professional acrylic paint artists use. It's a lot thicker, usually comes in tubes. But for mixed media artists, I think, acrylic paint in pen form was a really unique and handy thing. So, Posca was out there. They're relatively expensive. They're Japanese-made product. And when I started coloring, I colored as a kid, and I colored, as an adult, young adult. Then I had my daughter, I homeschooled her, I did some coloring because she had coloring stuff. But sort of really into adult coloring, I think it was like 2019-ish. And a couple of years into it, I started to see acrylic markers or acrylic pens, paint pens, put out by, I would say, probably Chinese companies that were selling them for much, much less than Posca, right? So sort of next step, next generation in this acrylic pen story, these are Arrtx markers. Bought those ages ago. What else have I got in here? I've got some Arrtx ones. And then you've got, of course, different sizes with different nibs. But they're all... I wouldn't say the ink in them is identical. Right? I've got some old Arrtx in here. These didn't even have numbers or anything on them. So, the ink, I wouldn't say is identical. There are differences. Some of the acrylic ink in some of these pens is more opaque than others. Some is shinier than others. Some has a more matte finish when it dries. Some has a little bit more gloss. Some of them have a little bit more glossy finish when they dry. But this was sort of I think the start, with Posca and then onto these kinds of things of, acrylic paint in pen form. And then, then the company started to get more, all of those markers that I had in that bin, none of them had names, none of them had color names, none of them had numbers. I numbered them myself, I just put little stickers on them. Then we started to get companies like Arrtx, and they started to realize that folks really did, want a way to basically, figure out at a glance which pen was which. And so Arrtx came out with all of these color sets. I do have them all. Believe it or not, I have them all in both the small and the medium. You'll see in a sec. And they have numbers on the caps. I actually got this case to put them in, but I cut the little, on the outside of the boxes, there was like a color swatch, and it gave all of the names of the colors and the numbers. There's no names on these pens, but there are numbers. So there was like a yellow-brown set, there was a red-pink set, blue, greens, grays. I have the earth tones, jewel, and pastel. So actually I don't have them all, because I think there's been one since then. There's like a wildflower set, I think. Southwestern is another one. But, I mean, these, essentially from what I can tell, this is the same kind of ink that was in those older pens that didn't have numbers, right? In pens like this, you typically have, can you hear that? So there's some sort of steel ball inside. You have to shake it to mix the ink up, and they have to be pumped and primed. I think all of mine are. I know I shouldn't have done that, but I did. And then you can use the ink that's in the pen. From what I can tell from all of the acrylic pens that I have, so these are the smaller nib ones, and then Arrtx was kind of like the big name for a while in acrylic markers. This case is ridiculously heavy. Sorry, I can't zoom out anymore. So here's the medium. Again, these color sets with Arrtx. Arrtx was kind of like the big name for a while. And these are what they're called their Pro line. This is typically the most opaque of the ink that the acrylic ink that you're gonna get in these acrylic pen types. And so, a lot of people use these to cover line work in coloring books. You can use them to just color as well. Lots of folks liked using them for, like those Disney color by number books. Because the ink is so opaque, it's going to cover up the numbers in color by number books, right? You also have sort of variations of this with glitter, metallic, right? But this was sort of what's the phrase they use? The OG of acrylic markers, acrylic paint pens. And then we started to see these types. And I think I have one of the older sets in here. Looked like this. So this Arrtx was, I think this is when we first started to see Arrtx. At least that's when I first started to see Arrtx. I don't remember seeing them a lot before they started coming out with these acrylic markers. Actually, there are some that are older than this. got them. Sorry. Oh, here they are. These were actually the first ones I bought. So Arrtx acrylic marker, it had two ends. It had a little kind of small brush end, and then like a bullet end. And these were touted as acrylic markers, but acrylic paint, by definition, it's water soluble when it's wet, but once it's dried, it's kind of fixed, right? It's kind of self-fixing. And art people, if I'm wrong on that, please correct me. I've done a little bit of acrylic paint work. Because basically once it's dry, it's plastic, right? It's plastic. You can't dissolve plastic with water. But some of these kind of acrylic markers, the ink that was in these was typically less opaque than the ink that was in the kinds of markers that I was just showing, where you had to, pump and prime, etc. And that makes sense to me from a delivery system and from a chemistry standpoint. It would be really hard to get a thick, opaque ink to be stored, because inside the body of this marker there's going to be like a cartridge. It's basically like a foam cylinder that's probably wrapped in plastic, and the ink is held inside that foam cylinder, and then as you write, it's sort of pulled out of that cylinder and into this foam nib. That would be really hard with a thick, opaque ink. So we started to see these markers, and the ink that was in these kinds of markers was definitely less opaque than the other markers that you had to pump and prime. Now, depending on what you needed them for, that was okay, right? If you didn't need them to be really opaque, you just wanted to be coloring with them, which with the brush end was a lot easier, right? You could do some blending, all that kind of thing. That was okay. Some of the ink in some of these pens was not so water resistant. Most of those acrylic pens that you have to pump and prime, once they're dry, as far as I know, that ink should be pretty permanent. But these, some of them would re-wet. And I remember Lindsay the Frugal Crafter looking at some of these kind, and she was more comparing the ink in these to almost like a gouache as opposed to an actual acrylic. So then you saw sort of, companies really started to get into these kinds of markers and pens. There's still, companies making the other kind, obviously, but, this sort of got big. And I think even within the last 6 months, these kinds of markers and pens, I mean, you see tons and tons of product on YouTube and Instagram where people, Arrtx have given folks product to review. So they're really pushing, new colors, new formulations. But yeah, these, the first ones that I bought weren't numbered or named either, so I put numbers on them. And then feedback from customers, I think they started to realize we needed some way to identify. So they started sending stickers, so you can put the stickers on yourself. I think now they come with little stickers too to go on the bottom of the pen. Arrtx isn't the only company that does this. I do have some Tooly art in here, but Arrtx seems to be the company that's really sort of taken over the space in this particular type of marker pen sphere, right? The acrylic brush pen sphere. I just see a lot of Arrtx. So, I don't have all the Arrtx sets. And what I have here, lots of these are older too. Tooly art's there. Arrtx then started kind of experimenting. And they came out with what they called the Simp Tap acrylic markers. I'm going to say like a year ago. Is that about right? These are still acrylic brush tip markers. But instead of the other kind of markers where, these ones here, there's no pumping, there's no priming, there's no shaking. again, they've just got that foam cartridge in there with the ink, and it just kind of self-feeds, as you're using it. That type of delivery system, you're not going to be able to get a thick ink to work with that, right? Because it just wouldn't be drawn out as you're writing. So I think Arrtx realized that, so they came out with these SimTap markers. Instead of a cartridge, there is a ball in them again. So kind of almost a step back, similar to, the original ones we were looking at where you had to pump and prime. But these are slightly different in that there's no pumping. Although, well, there is, but it's a different kind of pumping. These still had the brush tip, which everyone loved. Oh, that's a really juicy one. Kind of splattered snake when I opened it there. So these still have a brush tip. And to get the ink flowing, to start it, to prime it, there's this little pump on the end, and you had to, use your thumb. I found this really difficult. I don't know, it was really hard for me to sort of pump that. It wasn't an easy pump. Anyway, the ink in these ones was definitely more opaque, thicker ink. And the reason I think they could do that is because there was no cartridge for the ink to be stored in. The ink could be stored in just this open chamber back here with a ball to mix it up. It still had to come out through this foam nib, which I don't think this ink is as thick as, the ink that you get in the OG acrylic pens. But it's thicker and more opaque than the ink you find in the brush pens that don't require shaking and pumping. And then about, I'm going to say maybe 6 months ago. With the SimTap was a year, I'm guessing here, timeline. About 6 months ago, Arrtx came out with these. And they called these the liquid ink or the free ink system. Again, still acrylic markers. So basically, it's the same basic type of ink in all these markers. It's all acrylic paint. Different consistencies, different opacities. Some are thicker, some are thinner. These ones, again, still had a brush nib. So you've still got that same brush nib. You do have to shake these, right? So these have a little ball inside. So these are similar to these ones. These ones were the brush nib, but no shaking, no pumping, no priming. Then we had SimTap, shaking and sort of pumping and priming, but on the end instead of the tip. And these, they're like a halfway point, right? Shaking, no priming needed. But this free ink system interests me. And for those of you who maybe bought these kinds of markers and were looking at this thinking, I've seen this before. I've seen, right? Here's the kind of free ink. So there's this, and I don't think I can take it apart. Well, I can actually take this off. So you've got a chamber here with the ink, so there's no cartridge in there. And you've got like this, almost like a fin system. So there's a black thing inside with all these little fins on it. And that's sort of what's pulling the ink up to this cartridge. Not this cartridge, this nib. There's no cartridge that the nib has to be touching to draw the ink up. These little fins are what draws the ink up. I think that's why they're calling it this free ink system. But you can get away with thicker, more opaque ink with this free ink system than you can here. Because again, with that cartridge, if you put really thick ink in that cartridge, it's not going to be able to pull it into the nib. So thinner ink, you can get away with thicker ink in these ones. And so these were everywhere, right? Arrtx had sent these to lots of different people. You know, you saw them on channels and Instagram. As far as I know, there's only 36 of these. Oh, and I said, for those of you who were thinking, I've seen that delivery system before, this is where I've seen it. Maybe it's in other pens as well. I have a couple of these Caran Pigment Deco Brush pens. And they're the same idea. There should be a ball in here, I think. If I can... Nope. Get it to... There, you can hear it a little bit. There we go. I don't use them very much, so... You see? You see all those little fins in there? So again, you've got a chamber here with liquid ink, free ink, it's not contained in a cartridge, with a mixing ball, and then these little fins draw the ink towards the brush tip. These Caran markers, they're called Pigment Deco Brush, water-based, non-toxic. I don't think it says that they're acrylic. I find these aren't terribly, they're not opaque. They're not. So, yeah, different use for these. But that's where I had seen this system before. So, I don't know that we can say that Arrtx created this system. And I don't think Arrtx has ever said that. But, so at this point, I had these markers. I was playing with them. Here's the colors. I would say they're definitely more opaque than these. They're probably not as opaque as the sort of the OG ones that with the plastic nibs. Are they more opaque than the Simp Tap? You know, I haven't done a head-to-head comparison. They're probably close. I think you could use them to cover lines in your coloring book. You may need a few layers. Honestly, I think the best pens to cover lines are still that kind, right? That's going to be your most opaque ink. So I bought these, I was playing with them, and then I saw the video by SketchesnScrubs. See, I was getting to this. And she was talking about companies sending product to creators, whether it be on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And then usually there's an expectation when a company sends a product, you review it, whether that be in doing a piece of artwork or swatching it or something. There's an expectation that if they send you something, they're expecting you to kind of promote it, I guess, on your channel. But she had some really interesting kind of exchanges with some companies. A lot of these companies, I think, feel that giving creators the product is sort of payment enough for us to then do videos, which I'm not a professional artist. This is not, my day job. I don't mind making the occasional video if I receive a product. I just did one for some Ohuhu markers. But I don't do a lot of them. And she was also making the point that, as professional artists, maybe these companies should not only be gifting products, but should be paying creators. Because, you're doing advertising for them. Anyway, if anyone's interested in her video, just let me know in the comments and I can link it below. But that leads me to the number 3 thing. So not long after I had watched her video, I put in a couple questions to Arrtx, actually about these markers. And this is leading to the new product, new to me, that I wanted to show you in this video. Because I was curious about this free ink system. I knew this wasn't a proprietary system to Arrtx, right? Obviously, I mean, Karen had this same, I mean, these might look a little bit different, but it's essentially the same kind of ink delivery system. Karen had this system a long time ago. So this wasn't proprietary. And what that means is if something's proprietary, you know, that company has discovered it, figured it out, they usually charge a lot of money for a proprietary thing because they have had to put in all of the time and money and research to figure out that product or that delivery system, or you know what I mean? So, you know, these companies that come up with totally new types of products, they're expensive. I mean, partly because they have to make money, but partly also there's a reason, right? They're trying to recoup some of the years and time and money and research, you know, people they had to hire, etc. They're trying to recoup some of that cost. But as far as I knew, Arrtx didn't create this system. So these 36 markers, I looked up the price on Amazon US just the other day. When am I filming this? Today's January 11th, 2025, and I looked this up maybe 2 days ago. So these 36 markers are $45.99 US, and I know I'm Canadian, but I just thought US would be a common thing. I could compare all the prices. That's $1.28 a marker. And there was part of me that thought, I mean, I know this stuff costs money to make, but that just seemed kind of pricey to me. I had seen on another channel, I'm trying to think who it was. You know, it might have been Lily, Art Journey UK. She had shown these. This is Guangna, which they're the ones that made the super golden markers. They're a Chinese company. They've got all kinds of art supplies. And I was curious because look at the picture on the box. There's that free ink system, right? That what did Arrtx call it? Liquid ink system. They call it a free ink system. All these little fins, right? So I ordered this because I was curious. I wanted to see, you know, is this the same thing as this? Because this is $1.28 a marker. You can currently, and these prices, again, I'm saying these are prices as of, it was like January 9th, 2025 when I looked these up, but these prices are going to be all over the board. You can buy these on Amazon US through, no, it's a company called Thorswell or something. It's a third-party seller. There's 120 colors compared to the 36 that Arrtx have for $55.19, which is 46 cents a marker. These are $1.28 a marker. That's quite a price difference. I then, when I did a little bit more digging, I started to look on websites like AliExpress, Shein. I didn't look on Temu, but maybe you could find them on there. I actually found a seller on AliExpress that was selling the 120 set for $35.16 American. That's 29 cents, 29.3 cents a marker versus $1.28 a marker. So this goes back to, sorry, this video is kind of all over the place. It was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. Probably should have had a script of some kind to follow, but this goes back to sort of the point I was making about this email that I received from, well, Arrtx, actually. And so I had been asking about more colors, if they were coming out with, or planning on coming out with more colors for this line, because I had seen other companies with what I thought was basically the same thing with far more colors. And in my sign off when I was filling out the form, I think my sign off automatically has a link to my YouTube channel. So I guess they saw that I had a YouTube channel, and they were emailing me, and they were offering me free product, and wanted to set up, you know, can we come to an agreement? We'll send you these products, and then you would do, I think they wanted a video and a short, and it must have gone back and forth about 3 or 4 times between me emailing back saying, you don't understand. I don't want free product. I already have the product. I purchased it with my own money. I'm just wondering about information as to whether or not you'd be getting more colors of this, because I knew other companies had more colors. And then they came back with, I'm not understanding. Please let us know if you would like the free product. Would you like to set up... Oh, I can't quite remember how they worded it. Basically, I think they thought I was bargaining. But they were willing to send me product and set up some sort of payment. They were willing to pay me to review these markers. And I thought, this is just getting weird. I mean, maybe as an artist I should, I'm not an artist, but artists maybe should be getting paid to review product. But the whole email exchange just struck me as very odd. So, I don't know. I know a lot of people use and love Arrtx, but just left a really strange, funny taste in my mouth. I don't know. So, I started looking at alternatives because I thought, $1.28 a marker for something that's produced, it may or may not be white labeled. The technology is not it's not proprietary to Arrtx. It just seemed really expensive. So this is the new, it's not new, it's been around, product that if you're looking for an alternative to those Arrtx brush tip, acrylic, free ink, liquid ink markers, maybe take a look at some of these alternatives. I think Shuttle Art now has some too, but this is 120 colors. They come in this, it's a pretty thick, like it's a chipboard box. It's very similar to the box that thickness that the Arrtx come in. The Arrtx come in 2 trays, then you lift out, right? Got a tray underneath. Oh, now I've jammed the tray. So there you've got your 36 colors. The white actually is missing out of mine. Not missing, I have it, it's sitting in a jar on my desk. And these, tip this up. There's your markers there. And I don't know if I can show this or not. So this is it's a box. So of course the lid, right, came off this way. And then this I filled in myself. So there was a blank swatch chart on the top here. I flip this. On the back, they've got their own printed swatch chart. Now it even says, printing color difference, please use homemade color cards. The print here is not going to match the actual color of the pen. It's just not. Which is nice. They gave this little, it's right on the box. You can, if you want swatch cards that you could carry around, you'll have to make your own. But this was kind of neat. So there's this flap. Sort of hold this, pull. See that? So they sort of come out. Oh, can't pull too far. It's not a fancy system, but now they're in layers, so it's much easier to pull the pens out. And if I pull a pen out, let's pick a green. I love green. That's what they look like. There's no color name on the pen, but the caps are numbered. And then you've got numbering here. The barrel has a window, so you can see the ink level, just like you can with the Arrtx. If you shake it, it's got a ball inside. And if I pull this open, can you see? It's that same fin system, right? So there's all those little fins inside. So they're pulling the liquid ink up and towards the brush nib. I took a little white I buy these in packages of like 3,600. They're like little teeny white round stickers. And I actually wrote the number that's on the cap and then stuck it on the barrel, just in case I had, I don't know, a bunch of caps all off at the same time. At least then I know which marker goes with which cap, because that's the identifying number, and that number isn't on the barrel anywhere. So I just stuck little stickers on there. But as far as I can tell, and I will grab, just gonna pause, give me 1 second here. Okay, sorry, I had to grab something. As far as I can tell, the ink that's in these markers is virtually identical in consistency to the ink that's in these markers. Now, which then leads me to the question, why are the Arrtx markers so much more expensive? I will say there are a couple colors, because I did some coloring with both of them, and I'll show you that in a sec. There are a couple colors where I think the Arrtx ink might be a little bit more opaque than the Guangna ink, but overall, there's not a lot of difference. So then I thought, well, is the delivery system any different? Not really. I mean, there's I guess a slightly different shape. This has got a little bit of a shoulder there. I mean, the nibs are identical. You've got this fin system in both of them. So then I thought, well, maybe the Arrtx marker holds more ink. But here's the thing. It's a thicker marker. It feels thicker here than this Guangna marker. But that's what's holding the ink. Now, I can't unscrew the Guangna marker. Looks to me, though, like there's not a lot of plastic between... it's not like the ink tube inside here is teeny, and then there's a lot of empty plastic. Do you know what I mean? Looks like the ink goes right to about there. So actually, if I line up the end of the Arrtx with where the ink tube sort of stops inside the Guangna, I don't think... I mean, can you see? I don't think the Guangna holds less ink. I mean, I wouldn't know unless I busted them both open and drained the ink somehow and tried to, get out my graduated cylinder from my science kit and do an actual volume measurement. I guess I can't know, but just sort of, rough comparing, it looks like this is bigger and thicker, but I don't think once you sort of get in there that it is. So, again, why are the Arrtx ones so much more expensive? I did 2 colorings in here. This is Gabby Wolf Flowers. I did this one. And I did this balloon with the Arrtx markers. And this balloon with the Guangna markers. And I tried to go over the thick black lines just because I wanted to see. A lot of people use, and then I did add the shiny stuff here. That's I think that's some liquid golden or some super golden markers and maybe some metallic gel pens. So the sparkly, there's no metallics in the Guangna set. There's no metallics in the Arrtx set. This one here. I just wanted to see like opacity, coverage. Is there a difference? Maybe on the red. So let's look at the bottom of the balloon, because the bottom of the balloon had, black lines, and then it had some little black lines kind of showing, the bottom of a balloon is kind of ridgy. So there's the Arrtx. There we go. There's the Guangna. Yeah, that red Arrtx is maybe a little bit more opaque, but it wasn't opaque enough to cover up those black lines. If we look at the flowers, you know, I went over the black lines on the flowers. Those had fairly good coverage, I think. But I think these colors, the Guangna colors, did too. It was just the red that seemed a little bit less opaque. But this turquoise, the greens I was using, I don't see any difference in opacity. The colors aren't exact matches because Arrtx only had, 36 colors. But I don't see a lot of difference. And then I did this one. So again, was trying to go over the thick black lines. I would say, just want to make sure I'm not fibbing. I sort of cut the wreath in half. I'm pretty sure this is Arrtx and this is Guangna. So kind of starting, right about there with those leaves. These are the Arrtx free ink pens, and these are the Guangna free ink pens. Get you right up close there. Did they perfectly cover those dark lines? No, I can see a little bit of... these are thick, black, dark lines, right? I can see a little bit. So that's the Arrtx on that flower. That's the Guangna on that flower. I don't see a lot of difference. I don't. So, I think... Oh, sorry, camera took a minute there. I think if you're looking... Oh, that was other testing I was doing. If you're looking for an alternative to these, and you're looking for, maybe more colors, and there... Okay, this is the other thing that I wanted to address as well. You can buy these, like I say, AliExpress, $35.16 US, 29 cents a marker, 29.3 cents a marker. If you're getting something that inexpensively, somebody's paying somewhere. So, the workers that they're paying to produce this are not being paid very much. I don't know. Is Arrtx, because they're charging more, are they paying their workers more? Or is their profit margin more? I don't know. All of these things, do you guys think about these things? I don't know. Maybe I should just use the art supplies and not think about it. But I think that's kind of what I do. So I think about these things. But yeah, I thought these were interesting enough to talk about, to show, to see what other people thought. Do any of you have these? They come in different size sets. You don't have to get 120 colors. You can get, I think they might start as low as 12. Like 12, 24, 36, 48, 72. When I bought these, I actually bought these before Christmas. 120 was the biggest size that I knew of. And it's a pretty comprehensive color range. There's a lot of very lovely light pale colors. There's some really nice dark colors too, though. They could have had more green, yellow greens. That would be, yellow green is kind of my favorite color. If I had to complain, there's a white. Actually, that's not the white. So they have some really pale pales. There's that's actually a mint, a pale mint green. There's the white there. There's some pale pinks that are super pale. Do they have colors that are close to one another? Yeah. This 725 and the 604, those are pretty close. 615, 603, I mean, they're pretty close. But 120 colors was the largest set that I knew of. So just gonna shove that all back in, and then lid goes back on. Markers do need to be stored horizontally, but I think the same has been said for quite a few acrylic markers. Before Christmas, I had a major computer issue. My stress level was super high. What does Connie do when she's stressed? Well, I should color, but sometimes when my stress level is so high, I can't even color because I can't focus. I can't. So what do? I shop. After I bought that 120 set, I was still digging online, and I found a 168 set. Same idea. So here's 168 colors. Oh no, I pulled it out too far. It's not the best system for, oh no, go back in. It's all just cardboard. There you go. So we've got 168 colors. 120 colors are duplicates from this box. And then there are 48 new colors here. There are some neons, which weren't in the 120 set. There's no metallics or glitter anywhere. These are all flat, opaque. And yeah, I bought these. I have so many acrylic pens. I need to do something with them. It's shameful, quite frankly. So Mr. Color and Chemist seemed pretty excited by the whole thing. Maybe he'll like to do some coloring with them. Was looking at prices again about 2 days ago, so January 9th-ish, 2025. The cheapest I could find this 168 set was AliExpress for $68.59 US. So that's 40.8 cents a marker. So 41 cents a marker. Sorry, my printer decided to make a noise. Again, 29 cents a marker for this 120 set on AliExpress for $35.16. Again, these prices could change, particularly on these sites like AliExpress, Shein, Temu. It's like the Wild West out there. The prices just, they can change hourly sometimes. So please don't quote me on those prices and, wonder why those prices aren't, if you're watching this later. Shein had them for about $100. Amazon US had this 168 set for about $100, so 60 cents a marker. But even 60 cents a marker, that's a little under half the price of these. So if you were looking at these, I know these are considered a budget-friendly option, but these are more budget-friendly. But you do have to balance that with, like I was saying, with some of these Chinese companies. I don't know what their working conditions are. I don't know what their workers are being paid. If you're getting this much, this box must weigh. That's got to at least weigh 3 pounds. It's a heavy box. You're getting a lot of stuff here. And if you're not paying, that much, there's a lot of people that have to be paid, in terms of, there's the people making the packaging, making the product, the marketing team, the shipping, for all of that to be covered. I don't know. Probably the workers end up losing out in the end. I don't know. Sorry, this video is very rambly, isn't it? It's kind of all over the place. But I did want to show these just because I had found them. I hadn't seen them too much on YouTube. And I just thought if somebody's looking for an alternative to, the Arrtx, they were maybe thinking 36 colors for, what was it, $46 was maybe, you can, like I say, on AliExpress, get these ones for $35. 120. So this is about, what, 50 minutes? I managed to ramble on that long. We've talked a lot about a lot of different kinds of acrylic markers. Would I suggest these for covering up lines? I mean, there's certainly, pretty much find any color you would need there, wouldn't you? But I would think you'd have to do a couple coats because, again, the ink is not as opaque as the OG. If you want to cover up lines, these are probably still your best bet, I would think. If you don't mind doing a couple different layers to cover up lines, you know, these would probably work. I would think this free ink system is maybe better than this kind of system. Arrtx still sells these markers as well, but these are thinner. The ink is thinner than the ink that's in the free ink pens. The SimTap, you're looking at some thicker ink there as well. I really had a lot of trouble priming and pumping those. I don't know if that was just me, but there's only 48 colors there. And I actually don't know what the 48 pack of SimTap goes for. I don't know. But yeah, just a lot of options out there for using acrylic paint in pen form. So I think that's about enough rambling for me today. If you like what you're seeing, I have no idea if this would be one of those things, but if you like what you're seeing, consider liking the video, subscribing to my channel, hitting the notification bell, letting a friend know that you found a channel that you like. They might like it too. I hope everyone is safe. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone is enjoying their coloring. I will try and put links. You know what? I won't. I'm not going to put links to either this or this in the video description. Only because the listings change constantly, particularly on sites like Shein, AliExpress. Maybe I'll put the Amazon listing on in the description, just because that's less likely to change. That's probably one of the more expensive places, though, to buy these. So if you're looking to purchase these on one of these other websites, you kind of just have to search for... I searched for Guangna 168 free ink acrylic brush markers. That's what but I put Guangna. The free ink was important because otherwise it just brings up these kind. And then that's what I searched for. So yeah, I'll maybe see if I can put the Amazon links there, but the other ones, I mean, those links change constantly, so there's kind of no point in me putting it there. But yeah, I do hope everyone is enjoying their coloring. Until next time, folks, take care. Bye-bye.